The producer, Magaret Ragnarasson, and coach, Brynjar Karl Sigurosson. So, an incredible story and an incredible film to go with the story. So, I'd like to talk about both of those things. When did the project get started on making the documentary about this story?
Well, the director started filming very early on, just after Brynjar started the team.
The IR team or the team before the IR team?
The Stjarnan team, the first team, yeah.
Okay.
So, and he brought it to me. He was a first-time filmmaker, had never done a film before, so he brought it to me about a year and a half after he started filming. And I saw like, you know, a little clip and I thought, oh, this is something. This was hitting the right moment with a discussion on children and sports, girls and sports, empowering of young girls and, you know, gender equality within the sports movement. And so, you know, I just thought, let's find the money and, you know, make this more than just a small Icelandic film and take it out to the world, because it resonates with a lot of discussion going on and you know, all over the world, probably.
No, I agree 100%. But at the point at which you said, let's make this film, let's get it done. How far had the story advanced? Were we up to going to Sweden? Were we up to going to Germany? Were we already that far, or no?
No, we were at the point of, they had just moved to ER, Club ER. So there was footage before. And we just entered a few weeks before the protests, the first one, the cutest protests in world history, I believe.
It was really beautiful, I have to say. But so, did you know the filmmaker before he started?
Yeah, just a little. That's how I got to. That's how he got to film it.
Okay, so he started filming because he knew you were doing something special in your approach.
Yeah, I think first he just came and saw practice, and when he saw what was going on, he went home and got his camera.
Okay, well that's good. So by the time it came to you for producing, had he already filmed some of the parents' meetings and your meetings with the parents?
Yeah, I think you saw some of the first parents' meeting.
Right.
That was on his own.
Okay.
Doing a school project.
Okay. Well, it came out beautifully, and it continued. I mean, I guess the early footage and the storytelling advanced through the making of the film, and it was very consistent throughout. Obviously, your message and your approach was consistent throughout. I thought that in the choice to explain where your techniques came from, in terms of your own experience and anxiety and so forth, was really, really important. So we knew why you were doing the things that you were doing and how you were approaching it. And that really helped to explain it. Did that come along? Did he want that to be part of it, to explain that part through your wife's voice?
No, I mean, I think you could have had many different angles on the subject, and you know, there's actually quite few that were kind of hard to fit into it. So I think what he was focusing on was just like the surface of the communication between, you know, me and the parents, and then obviously, you know, it was interesting for him to see the way or the methods that were used to empower the girls, and then obviously the equality struggle, which I never really looked at it as gender equality. I mean, I just looked at it as, you know, individuals that didn't get any answers, and you know, I think it's the same thing, you know, like, you know, back home when you deal with Icelanders of foreign origin and stuff like that. It's just the whole idea of giving people the opportunity to, you know, make something out of themselves and create their own worth and wealth, and and those type of things.
But I just think that your experience of the anxiety attack and your knowledge of what happened to you, and then trying to convey that to the girls, to make them understand that, for instance, you say you can only be hurt if you let someone hurt you. And the stress, I'm creating the stress in your mind, but you can be aware of the stress, but you can be with it, which is very meditative, as you know, and then, but you can go through it. And that was based on your own personal experience. So that was revealed in the film through your wife talking about it and so forth. And I think that helped us to understand why you were doing it and how you were doing it. And so the meditation was not really talked about. Your meditation and the girls getting in the center court on their stools and meditating. So was that something that you brought them to talk to them about the meditation? Can you tell us a little more about that?
Yeah, it was like 2 years where they would sit, and we basically call it sitting and being quiet.
Right.
I mean, that's basically what it was. And the reason why I did that was it's a good induction into all sorts of stuff that you do mentally, like, for example, any type of imagery, which is a big part of, what they do today. But also, just the whole idea. I mean, I also coach boys, and it's a little bit harder to get them to sit. But I mean, once they do, it just kind of brings emotional flexibility to the surrounding, which is a sports hall. So, being able to kind of amplify and take the anxiety level up and down was important to us, and I'm happy it's in the movie because it kind of shows that it's diverse. It's just not all. I don't think you would have liked to see me teach layups for 40 minutes or something. So it's a little bit dramatized. It's like I'm always screaming and yelling.
Well, it does make it more dramatic.
Yeah, it makes it more dramatic.
It gives some conflict, obviously, with the parents and also with the basketball association. And we all love to see conflict and whether it's going to be resolved or what it is. That's storytelling.
That was actually quite a surprise to me. I never expected the association to act the way they acted. So that was the $1 million decision by them for the filmmakers.
But you did game out the things that could happen after the medal ceremony.
Well,
you did game that out.
Yeah, that was a lot later, kind of like in the process.
Okay.
And one of the things that I used to tell the girls when we started playing the boys, or some of the lessons that went along with. Because when you played in these club tournaments, the boys play on Saturday and the girls on Sunday. So the first time we show up in the boys tournament on a Saturday, the organizer came just running and said, "I'm sorry, you're supposed to be here tomorrow," and we just we're gonna be here today. And they just looked at you and they went like, "What do you mean?" And then Then they got on the court, and it was interesting to see that almost all the boys' team had members of the teams that would laugh at them, and I thought that was very interesting. And then after the game, they were all crying, and then it was interesting to see some of the mothers who were not pleased with it, and that was a shock to me.
Yeah.
To see that, and then the day after we would enter into the girls' tournament, and I would basically sit with them and ask them and say, what do you notice? What do you see different? So for me, that was more of the meditative stage, where we're just kind of paying attention to the surrounding.
Mindfulness.
Yeah, just paying attention to your surrounding and what's different. So that's as far as I will commit to inculcating, these different ideas, because they would all agree that the girls would get more credit for less technique. There were more parents running onto the court for, less...
lesser achievements.
Yeah, or like when they were, crying or on the court and stuff. And then, people were a little bit more hangover on Sundays than on Saturdays. And and it wasn't. They noticed it.
Yeah.
So there was there was all sorts of 17th and 18th and 19th century philosophers that were being introduced to them at that time that we used to kind of help explain some of these things, and Marcus Aurelius and you know, all sorts of Stoic philosophers that were kind of able to kind of explain, you know, what it was that they saw.
Seneca. Yeah.
Seneca, yeah.
Okay.
Epictetus.
Well, one of the things that was really fabulous is to see how the girls became self-determining after you had begun to teach them these things and to give them the power. That their team meeting was one of the most impressive things I've ever seen. I love their team meetings.
Well, team meetings kind of change your brain circuits, you know, when you enter into it. And we still have people come into these meetings now with boys and girls, because that's our new club.
There you go. I want that hat.
Yeah, we can get you one.
Okay.
And you know, the meetings for me just kind of taught me how we're underestimating kids, unbelievably. And they have, you know, like their sense of justice, and you know, they're so free from, you know, all the politics and everything that kind of pollutes your thought, you know, in decision making, you know, right from wrong and stuff like that. And you know, I was out of coaching at that time, and you know, I feel a great sense of calling to continue it and have more people kind of see how we kind of combine the sports and this character coaching together with the kids. Right. A lot earlier than I've ever done, because I'd been doing this with teenagers. So I was very curious to see what we could start earlier, because that's one of the things I've done basketball-wise. So we were always trying to introduce all sorts of agility exercises and stuff like that. And you know, you try it and you take these incremental steps, you know, one at a time. So, you know, it was never a shock treatment. I mean, it was gradually built in. So as, you know, when I found that we were kind of getting outside of their age limit or the maturity limit, you know, we would stop. But it was amazing, you know, especially with the mental part, that they kept surprising me with what they were able to understand and how they were able to pick up and just, you know, being critical thinkers in the making.
Well, and I mean, people talk about this a lot, and developmental stuff between the genders, and how girls have tended historically to mature faster than boys, and less active, easier to sit perhaps, and other things. But the self-determining maturity that they showed in those team meetings, now, when you weren't there and the camera was there, first of all, the camera disappeared. They were so good about not playing to the camera, not being involved with the camera. They were just themselves.
They grew up with it.
Exactly.
And they're still filming. They've been filming. They never stopped. And you know, my daughter is gonna feel like she's been rejected if somebody doesn't have a camera in practice. She's gonna be like, you know, she's living the life of Kim Kardashian.
Did you get to see footage of the team meetings that you weren't at? Did you ever get to see that?
No, never saw that.
Okay, because that's really impressive, I think.
They had that all the time.
Yeah, and that's so great. I love that part of the film. Was magnificent. And back to the filmmaking part, a very haunting score. It had sort of what I don't know to be Icelandic qualities to it, but it was very haunting. And the footage outside of the verite footage, which was the empty gym, for instance, or the slow bouncing basketball behind the fact that Tanya, is that how it's pronounced? Tanya couldn't play because of her back injury. These things go to the storytelling, the filmmaker's storytelling part, which were all so effective. So it's sort of brilliant concept of the way it was scored and the way it was shot, and those little bits that aren't the verite parts that weren't watching that. By the way, how is your daughter? What's the story with her back injury?
Well, that's a question I get all the time. I mean, it's like,
well,
it's like 2 years since. Yeah. People are concerned. I understand, but yeah, she got really well. I mean, it was a little bit hectic, and you know that second time it was more like a false alarm, because her back had healed, and you know you're a nervous Nelly, you know, around your kids, you know, when it comes to stuff like that. But no, she's doing really well.
Okay, and is she still playing basketball?
Oh yeah.
Oh, yeah. Now, what's going on with, I don't know how to pronounce the name of that club.
Athena.
Athena, okay.
Yeah, god of craftsmanship and war and wisdom.
And wisdom,
Yeah.
wisdom. A lot of wisdom and character.
A lot of wisdom.
So what's going on with that, the club?
It's
It's a
unbelievable.
boys and girls team?
Oh my goodness, yeah. Well,
What ages?
Well, you just going to have to see the second movie, you know,
Oh, okay.
and raise the bar
Clearly.
too.
It's a follow.
Clearly.
Will be a follow-up.
Oh, I'm so glad.
Yeah,
We're all
No,
glad to hear
but
that.
Yeah, but the short story is basically this: you know, when the old club, they went back to. I mean, 1 week after they arrived, and I thought it was very interesting because I stepped aside, and then everybody was coming to me and like, you know, now Mr. Hotshot, you know, what are you going to do now? And I was just really like, what do you mean? We're just going to continue. So it's really painful to see how everything just dissolved. And I basically, you know, because I kind of look at my job as just being a CEO, and my parents are the shareholders. And it's basically like, okay, if I'm able to produce this, and if this is the outcome, don't ask me about methods, you know, and because that's what I do. So as long as the result is what you want it to be, you know, I want the freedom to do it. But at that time, it was, I wish there was a documentary just on the psychological thriller of what was going on behind the scene with the parents and stuff like that. You can only see the surface. It's amazing.
Which is enough.
It's amazing.
But we should still say that we had hundreds and hundreds of material. So this was a whole year in the edit just to pull out the scenes we have. So
And to get away with it, I guess. Because
and I was just like, Jesus, you know, we have to stop at one point. The money runs out, you know. So,
yeah.
but it was quite a.
So the girls went back to the, I won't say it, the first club.
Yeah.
And then it dissolved its women's team.
Yeah, they dissolved the women's team, and I'm just kind of like looking at some of these parents, and I'm going like, I mean, do we need more proof? Because the reasons, and the women's team was doing extremely well. It was doing better than the men's team at that time, and it was just like, it's Atlantis to hear that they said the reason it's a lot cheaper program. But they said they didn't have organically grown players, and it was too expensive. And the men's team was a lot worse, and nobody said anything. And I got sick to my stomach, and I just went, because I was gonna basically just leave him with it. And I said, well, we need to start a club, and then the way the program or the sports system is set up in the city is that you basically have to get gyms. Some of them are school gyms and whatnot, because this is all club level through the town, and they didn't want anything to do with us, and they still don't want anything to do with us. So we found the crappiest gym you've ever seen on the outskirts of Reykjavik, which is like 30. You know, it's a hour and 50-minute bus ride for some of these girls, and there were 7 of them who played for 2 years. It's amazing. That's amazing. And they kept the club going, and no girls were allowed to come. And at that time, I had made a vow to stay quiet until the movie came out. So the movie obviously came out in March, and that's when I went public. And then people are going like, well, he's not a psychopath. And there's a
Are you sure?
Well, I fooled them. And so all of a sudden, there was this unbelievable shift. But I mean, Margaret can tell you more about the turmoil that was. I mean,
I've been doing films for over 20 years, and I've done a lot of controversial subjects before. But this exceeded everything, you know, kids, and then the kind of conflicts within the parent groups. So we decided, we had it on a commercial channel in Iceland, and we just kind of slid it out there, you know. We didn't advertise at all, because both the medal drop and the earlier protests had, you know, made headline news in the media. So, and there was a lot of fear going on amongst the parents. What this film was going to be about. So we just I went skiing for a weekend, and it just went out that weekend, and all hell broke loose. I mean, I've never seen anything like this. It was in all the media, all radio programs, newspapers, television, talk
in the
shows.
academia and as well.
The academia it was absolutely, saying that Brynjar was like an old Russian, trainer.
Scorpion coach.
Yeah, and all podcasts. I mean, for weeks and weeks and weeks, this was the talk of the town. And you were just like following the discussion, going negative, and then all of a sudden positive, and we didn't have to do any PR for this at all. But it got very personal immediately, because Brynjar he was running an experiment, controversial program for the girls, and
so there was a lot of people that had invested in some hate before the movie came out, and and it was the toughest thing. I mean, I don't deserve anything good, but
no, you don't. No.
It was hard to not defend the girls, and there was one. I mean, because I foresaw basically everything that happened,
right?
Except I didn't take into consideration how the girls would feel about being belittled, or of being a part of a cult, and being brainwashed and stuff like that. And that was the hard part, because nobody would have ever believed me if I would have told them that this was their idea, if they were the one that executed it, and and nobody ever spoke to them, which was amazing. It was just all over their head, everywhere. And so I sat there for 2 years. I mean, I had been the most hated coach in the country already for 2 years. And this was just the most hated person in the whole country. And then the movie comes out, and there were so many people that had already invested in it. So it was really hard for them to come back. And I've actually, I've gotten a bit of a kick out of seeing what these people are saying, because now we have some psychologists and sociologists who have kind of gone into just lying, basically, to kind of save their own ass.
But because this got very personal. So the themes of the film that you have been referring to weren't discussed at all in Iceland, which is why it's been so interesting to see the film, fly and be successful in other countries, because there nobody knows Brynjar.
Well, they don't, but they do know that. I mean, what's made in the film very clear is why didn't they give a reason? Because they don't have a reason. They don't have a legitimate reason, so they can't give one. So, and how does it play out? I mean, it's interesting, because earlier this afternoon we saw a film about a television movie about a nuclear war, and it upset the entire United States. And basically, for Iceland, this movie is that. It's the nuclear war for Iceland that happened, in terms of the reaction that happened, because it's countrywide, and it's across a whole political divide. Now, let me ask you one question, though. At the very end of the film, we talk about the Convention for the Rights of the Child. So what's that about? Where's that come from? It's not. It wasn't a result of the film. I mean, it exists. Yes.
Yeah. This is the UN convention, or Convention of the Right of Children.
Right.
And what we thought was, because the discussion, we knew the discussion would go into, these 12-year-old girls or 10-year-old girls do not have opinions like that. They do not speak up for themselves and so on. So we decided to, because the way Brynjar had been coaching them, he had been preparing them for what was to come. He discussed every possible outcome of every possible scenario that could happen when they were really kind of fighting the association or federation.
Right.
We wanted to kind of underline that these are kids who have been educated, and they have the right.
They have rights
to speak up, and this was their decision to drop the medal like that. Of course, they had good help with Brynjar. But we just wanted to underline that kids don't often get the voice, and you know, and that was the reason we, you know, put it in there.
Well, and that's very true. And to your coaching skills, I mean, I've never seen girls play basketball that well. I mean, they're those drills. I mean, that's just incredible, especially for young people to have those motor skills. We don't have a lot of time left, but I do want to get questions from the audience. Right here.
I have a question. It's not really a film question, but I wonder how you thought about and handled talking to the girls, because you're an authority figure representing your own body of stuff, and they have their parents that they're going to all the time who have their own body of stuff, and that really puts them in a tricky position. And I wonder how you spoke to them, or if you did, about that.
Well, yeah, it's an easy answer, because I was always encouraging the parents to come up to all the meetings, and then I would basically I would have these quarterly meetings, like every 3 months, where I would kind of go through the mental training curriculum. So the parents were very well informed of everything. Nobody should have been surprised. But I'll tell you this: out of 14 girls, and you know how it is, you know, not all the parents are kind of into it. The top 7, how should I say, families, you know, and when I say top 7 that participated in these meetings, every single one of them stayed. So when you got to around 8 until like 14, you know, when you're like 9 and 10, their parents never showed up, had no interest in what was going on. And you know, these were the parents that because there was only like 2 parents who got really mad and frustrated about this, and then you always have those people in between that are kind of borrowing values and opinions from other people, and like, what direction is this going to go, and I'm going to make sure I'm on the right side of the line. And then you had 7 of them that was like not surprised that this was actually what had happened. So it's I understand that it's a bit of a radical compared to what's available. You know, it's kind of like controversial, radical, and all that. But at any step, and because it's so progressive, it's so easy to, you know, if you wanted to, you know, pull the kids out. And I've never had a girl that left the program because they didn't feel like they weren't taken care of, or they didn't feel like they got attention. When I'm coaching 8, 9, and 10-year-old kids, all my confrontation is basically with the parents. So if a kid isn't doing very well, I'm on the parents. And believe me, I'm on the parents. And that's something that people, you know, because my day job is I own a company. It's basically it's basically helping business leaders and people kind of sharpening their coaching philosophy and like cultural strategy and stuff like that. So I mean, we're in this how should I say, better off areas in Reykjavik, and half of my parents are CEOs and doctors and whatnot, and it was different. You know, it was different for them to have a strong-minded CEO. You know,
in charge of their kids.
Yeah.
Okay, one more question, because we are out of time. But right there in the back. Yeah. Yeah.
You can make another film about what's happened to these young women. What have they done with their strengths, which they've gotten from you and the parents have allowed it? Who have they become? And some of this footage can be used as a thread that goes through it.
So.
Those girls, you know, there's an English director who every 7 years. Well, that would be interesting.
Absolutely, and they are being filmed still. There is another new director.
New director?
The other one was exhausted. No, there is another director, but he's following them. He's been filming them since before we launched this one. So he kind of took over. We stopped filming shortly after the medal drop. And for some reasons, we couldn't even access some of the parents. But so they're still being filmed.
Well,
so there will be a sequel at one point.
Well, it's a fabulous film and a fabulous story, and good luck to you going forward. Good luck to the Athena Club.
Thank you.
Thank you for bringing it to us.